When you think of world champions in baseball, usually you picture elite starting rotations, a balanced, dangerous lineup, defenders who take away extra bases, and a lights-out bullpen. Most champions look dominant long before they lift the trophy, but not all. Sometimes, whether it's a soft division or an underwhelming roster that gets hot at the right time, the underdog finds a way to win anyway. Today we're looking at the weakest World Series champions of the wildcard era. First up, the 1997 Florida Marlins. On paper, this doesn't look like a typical champion. They won 92 games, but their 88 Pythagorean wins was one of the lowest all-time for a World Series winner. Their offense had some decent players who had good seasons, but they didn't lead the league in any important offensive category. Charles Johnson and Moises Alou were all-stars, and Johnson won a Gold Glove. Their pitching rotation had all-star Kevin Brown, who posted his 2.69 ERA and went 16-8. Alex Fernandez was decent as well, going 17-12 with a 3.59 ERA. Livan Hernandez joined them in mid-June and was decent also. But outside of that were a few guys who had ERAs and FIPS in the mid-4s. Their bullpen didn't have a single pitcher with a B WAR over 1. Their closer, Rob Nen, had an ERA near 4. Nothing about this team really looks dominant. Now the playoff path. They sweep the San Francisco Giants in the NLDS, a 90-win team with a -9 run differential and a Pythagorean wins of only 80. The Giants were possibly the worst 90-win team to ever make the playoffs. The real test was in the NLCS against the Atlanta Braves. In 1997, the Braves had 7 players selected to the All-Star game, including 3 of their 4 starters. John Smoltz was the only one who didn't go. His 3.02 ERA was the highest of their 4 starters. On paper, this is a bloodbath by Atlanta, but after 4 games, the series was tied at 2 games apiece. In Game 5, Livan Hernandez had 15 strikeouts, many of which were quite controversial. The Marlins took the series in Game 6 with their ace Kevin Brown back on the mound. In the World Series, they faced an 86-win Cleveland Indians team with a Pythagorean wins of 85. Cleveland had a potent offense, but their starting pitching was lacking. Their 2 best starting pitchers had ERAs barely below 4.5, and their others were between 4.5 and 5.65. It was a back-and-forth series with neither team winning back-to-back games. Florida was eventually outscored in the series 42-37, but won Game 7 in extra innings. Florida squeaked by in 7 to a pretty bad Cleveland pitching rotation that had struggled all season. Next, the 2000 New York Yankees. The 2000 Yankees team was a stark contrast to their 1998 and 1999 championship teams. On the pitching side, David Cohn went from being an all-star to a 6.91 ERA. The pitching rotation of Roger Clemens, Andy Pettitte, and Orlando Hernandez were a good trio, but there was a good drop after that. Mariano Rivera had a bit of an off year for him, but he was still Rivera. But after Jeff Nelson, the bullpen was a bit thin. Offensively, Derek Jeter had a down year for them, but was still an all-star. Chuck Knobloch's WAR dropped from 3.5 to 0.3, and Tino Martinez's dropped from 2.2 to 0.3. Paul O'Neill's dropped by half as well, but Jorge Posadas jumped by almost 4 WAR. The 2000 Yankees won only 87 games with a Pythagorean win of 85, lowest of any playoff team in that year. In the ALDS, the Oakland Athletics took the Yankees to 5 games, outscoring them 23-19. The Yankees only batted .244 as a team, hit 1 home run, but timely hits helped. Luis Sojo led them with 5 RBIs, despite batting .188. The ALCS saw the Yankees beat the Seattle Mariners in 6 games that they held to only 5 runs in the first 3 games. The Yankees' bats were a bit better in this series, but with 18 of their 31 RBIs coming from 3 players. Pitching was the major difference, with Roger Clemens throwing a complete game shutout and Pettitte posting an ERA under 3. Orlando Hernandez went 2-0, despite his ERA being over 4. Seattle Mariners starter Freddie Garcia went 2-0 with a 1.54 ERA, but it wasn't enough. In the World Series, the Yankees faced off against the New York Mets. All 5 games of the series were 1 or 2 run games, but the Mets bats really never got going, while Roger Clemens threw 8 scoreless innings and Andy Pettitte kept his ERA under 2 in his 2 starts. Reliever Mike Stanton picked up 2 wins in relief, and Mariano Rivera saved 2 games en route to their 3rd consecutive World Series win. They were a good team, but the lion's share of the heavy lifting came from only a few players. The 2014 San Francisco Giants. This is probably the most top-heavy team to win a World Series during my lifetime. After limping into the playoffs with 88 wins and a Pythagorean win of 87, which was tied for the fewest wins of a playoff team that year. Offensively, Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, Pablo Sandoval, and Hunter Pence were solid, but there was quite a drop-off after that. Their pitching rotation was questionable. Madison Bumgarner and Tim Hudson were all-stars, but Tim Lincecum and Matt Cain had negative WAR seasons. But the Giants added Jake Peavy at the trade deadline, and there were some decent bullpen options too. They played a wildcard game in Pittsburgh that Madison and Bumgarner won them easily, scoring a 4-hit, 10-strikeout complete game shutout for an 8-0 win. In the NLDS, the Giants won a low-scoring series 3-1 against the Washington Nationals. In the series, both teams only scored 9 runs apiece, with 2 unearned for Washington and 1 unearned for San Francisco. The Giants batted just .222 to win, while the Nationals hit just .164. The NLCS saw the Giants face off against a 90-win St. Louis Cardinal team that had a Pythagorean wins of only 83, the lowest of any playoff team that year. In Game 1, Mad Bum throws 7 2/3 scoreless innings in a 3-0 win. In Game 5, Bumgarner throws 8 innings, gives up 3 runs to win 6-3, and the Giants win the NLCS. The NLCS MVP is Bumgarner's as well. In the World Series, the Giants faced an 89-win Kansas City Royals team with the Pythagorean wins of 84, the second weakest team in the playoffs that year. Game 1 of the World Series, Madison Bumgarner pitching again, 7 innings, 1 earned run, 7-1 victory. Game 5, Bumgarner, complete game, 4-hit shutout, 8 strikeouts, Giants win 5-0. In Game 7, the Giants take a 3-2 lead in the top of the 4th and ride Madison the rest of the way. He throws 5 innings, gives up 2 hits, 0 runs, 4 strikeouts, Giants win. The World Series MVP, of course, is Madison Bumgarner, who threw 21 innings, gave up 1 earned run for a 0.43 ERA, going 2-0 with a save. In my eyes, the single greatest postseason performance I've ever witnessed. But overall as a team, the 2014 Giants were going to live and die based on how Bumgarner did. Next, the 2006 St. Louis Cardinals. The 2006 St. Louis Cardinals won the NL Central with only 83 wins and 82 by Pythagorean. Not only did they have the worst record of any playoff team that year, 5 teams in MLB with better records didn't even make it. In any other division that year, their 83 wins would be good for 3rd or 4th. On offense, Albert Pujols was the runner-up NL MVP, Scott Rowland had a solid year, but nobody else had a standout season. Catcher Yadier Molina and second baseman Aaron Miles both posted negative WARs. Their starting pitching was thin. Chris Carpenter was a 5.1 WAR All-Star, but Jason Marquise and Mark Mulder were both worth nearly -2 WAR each. Jeff Suppan had a WAR barely above 1 also. Closer Jason Isringhausen had a decent but not standout season, and rookie Adam Wainwright was good in relief as well. Braden Looper and Brad Thompson were okay, but nothing about this team screams depth. In the NLDS, the Cardinals faced the 88-win San Diego Padres. Chris Carpenter went 2-0 as the only Cardinals starter to last more than 5 innings in his starts. They held San Diego to only 6 runs in the series, outperforming the rather mediocre stats they posted in the regular season. In the NLCS, they faced a 97-win Mets team. The series went 7 games, with 1 earned run separating the two. Yadier Molina had 2 home runs and 6 RBIs, Jim Edmonds had 2 home runs and 4 RBIs, and Scott Spezio had 5 RBIs. Chris Carpenter's ERA was nearly 6 in his 2 starts, but Jeff Suppan was 2-0 with 15 innings pitched and a 0.6 ERA. Suppan would be named the NLCS MVP. In the World Series, the Cardinals faced the Detroit Tigers, a 95-win team. On paper, this World Series match seemed like Detroit couldn't lose. A deep lineup with great years by Carlos Guillen, Brandon Inge, and Curtis Granderson. Veteran catcher and all-star Ivan Rodriguez controlling the pitching staff. Pitching-wise, Rookie of the Year Justin Verlander, and 3 solid inning-eating starters in Jeremy Bonderman, Nate Robertson, and veteran Kenny Rogers, who all threw 200-plus innings. Their bullpen had set-up men Fernando Rodney and flamethrower Joel Zumaya, the latter whose ERA was under 2. None of that mattered. The Cardinals beat Verlander 7-2, lost Game 2 before cruising to 3 straight wins to take the series. Last up, the 2015 Kansas City Royals. The 2015 Royals won 95 games, but by Pythagorean won only about 90. They finished third in the league in batting average, but only 11th in on-base percentage and slugging. This was well into the Moneyball era, and this was a team that seemed to deprioritize on-base percentage. For example, Alcides Escobar was their leadoff, despite a low on base. Salvador Perez, with an OBP of only .280, hit in front of Alex Gordon in the World Series. During the regular season, Gordon's .377 on base led Kansas City, yet he often hit 7th or 8th. Hitting behind Perez with an OBP 100 points higher is not how most teams would optimize their roster. On the pitching side, their starting pitcher and WAR was 20th in MLB. There was no ace on this team, and really most were closer to number 3 or number 4s. Granted, their relievers were 3rd in WAR for the league, with the deadly trio of Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, and Holland. If you were behind after 6 innings, they came in and the game was usually over. In the ALDS, an 86-win Houston team with an expected wins of 93 took them to 5 games. In that series, the Royals were down 2-1 in the series and losing Game 4 6-2. KC would score 5 runs in the 8th inning and 2 more in the 9th to eventually move on to the ALCS. That series saw them take on the Toronto Blue Jays, a 93-win team with an expected wins of 102. Despite the Jays having the highest offensive WAR in MLB by a good margin, KC beat them, outscoring them 38-26, with 18 of those Blue Jays runs coming in just 2 of the games. The World Series also seemed skewed towards KC's opponent. Despite only winning 90 games, the Mets were 6th in the league in offensive WAR and 5th in starting pitching WAR. Matt Harvey and Jacob deGrom were the aces for the Mets, with Noah Syndergaard not far behind. Uris Familia, in his 1.85 ERA, was ready to shut the door in 9th innings. The Mets led Game 1 from the 5th inning until the bottom of the 9th when KC tied it. KC would eventually walk it off in the 14th. Game 2, KC won easily 7-1. The Mets won Game 3 9-3, but KC responded with a 5-3 win in Game 4 and a 7-2 win in Game 5 to claim the title. The Mets only hit 193 in the series, and the Royals only hit 239. KC's bullpen was lights out, just as it had been all year, but it was their starting pitchers outperforming their regular season stats. That's basically what all the teams in this list did. Played good enough at the right time to win it all. But these teams didn't look like champions on paper. But maybe that's what makes baseball so different and so great. On any given day, any team can win. What do you think? Is there another team you think had an unlikely rise to become World Series champs? Let me know in the comments.